And welcome to the Daily Space Weather, folks. I'm your host, Dan, aka smAsho. We're starting things out today looking at the sun in 193 angstroms. SDO calibration maneuver happening there. It's not because the Borg have shown up and started screwing around with the SDO. We see coronal holes associated with the North Solar Polar region, an active region in the southeast, some filaments in the southeast and northwest. We'll get into it. Here's the view from HelioViewer. There are the fields. No sunspots. Fairly weak activity. We'll show you all the data. And there you can see those significant filaments in the northwest as well as the southeast. And there's the fade back from 304 to 171 angstroms. These are actually yesterday's videos. Let's get on to some more data like the real-time solar wind. Top two panes, nothing too interesting to talk about there. Solar wind density around 7.5, 8.5 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed quite low here. Background levels, to say the least, 318 kilometers a second. Next, we'll look at the geospace magnetosphere movies. Just give that a minute to load. And we see fairly weak pressure here. And we see a fairly steady wind speed and density, so no real surprises there. And there's 4 hours of data. Nothing too exciting happening on that. And let's just look at the still frames here of the density and velocity. Small anomaly there in the density on the dawn side. Nothing to write home about. Next, looking at the ground geospace magnetic perturbations. And we see some associated with the South Geomagnetic Pole, which has crept off of the Antarctic continent into the southern Indian Ocean, as well as the Canadian Geomagnetic North Pole. Less so over the Siberian Geomagnetic North Pole. And all of this data is provided by University of Michigan. It's part of the Space Weather Modeling Framework. If you want to read about it, go to the page, click on details, and let's talk about funding. Our funding's been drying up, which is increasing the probability that these videos will no longer be publicly available and free. So please consider becoming a patron, as our funding, if it dries up enough, we will entirely stop putting out these videos, especially on places like YouTube. So consider becoming a patron today and helping to financially support our efforts here, as we are extremely stalled as a result of human ignorance and stupidity. So check out over there at smashomash.org. By the way, we will be making the 3C405 shirts, or perhaps some other merch very soon, possibly today. We may release a video about what that's going to be. We're also on Subscribestar and on PayPal. It's paypal.me/smashomash, and we only have to raise $500,000 to reach our goals. By the way, we are streaming live to Twitch, and if you enjoy the content, please don't forget to share on your social media. Press like, subscribe, leave us a comment. Watch our older videos. Check out our playlists, perhaps, as there's lots of content always being added on there. We're also on BitChute and other social media. We'll talk about it in a minute. And let's move on to the Smashlights section, where we talk about whatever we want, whether it's our you-know-what or a hole in the ground. It's all good. And let's play some mood music to go along with it. How about Tilt-A-Whirl by Golden Cat Productions? Now that's my record label. If you never heard of it, well, Make America Not Suck Again by heading to soundclick.com/goldencatproductions. All the links are below the video, by the way. And let's get into the Smashlights section here. First of all, let's talk about cheddar. Cheddar. Have you learned how to say cheddar? Now, Smash staff doesn't want to say cheddar because she's not too pleased about cheddar, because I keep saying cheddar, cheddar. Fireworks are often made in cheddar, and I would be careful with those if I were you. such as in Pennsylvania, where they've become legal and people keep doing reckless things with them. By the way, being reckless has not become legal. Please use fireworks responsibly. And anybody who was not aware that common fireworks release toxic metals into the air, man, I don't know. Take a chemistry class. The things that make them colored are metals like titanium and copper and all kinds of other metals that are being oxidized as they burn up. And so, yeah, try not to breathe fireworks smoke. It's kind of bad for you. And I don't know why this is a thing, but thanks, Phys.org, for telling everybody stuff that we should have known just instinctively. Let's talk about other stuff about China. China. Please say it aloud, folks. China. C-H-I-D-A. China. China. The paper tiger. China. Now, this telescope's made in China, and it's detecting extragalactic neutral hydrogen emissions for the first time. Now, some of us that doesn't surprise in the least. So perhaps read this article from SciTech Daily about the 500-meter aperture spherical radio telescope, otherwise known as FAST, which is fast proving theories that make sense when it comes to cosmology and fast debunking nonsense. So I've got some theories as to why we see so much hydrogen in terms of extragalactic galactic jets, central galactic core emissions, and so on. And we're using things like emission and absorption spectra in order to figure this out. One of the other relevant features is carbon monoxide. So again, have a read here if you don't know about hydrogen emissions from the cores of galaxies. And yes, this supports theories that I largely support. So, and I'm not cherry picking because I'm always searching for articles that disprove my theories, which I don't seem to find. By the way, shout out once again to Colleen Gulick. We're planning another video with her. Check her out on Instagram, perhaps. She's got about 8 times as many followers as I do. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you may not see videos like this. We saw some great cumulus clouds yesterday, and I had to get some footage of them. So there are some great, interesting multi-altitude cumulus clouds. So I had to get those. And also, did you know that there's some bad news, folks? Turns out that I'm only 45% human, which means I'm an industrial robot. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. We'll get back to it. First, let's talk about exposed planetary cores discovered, an unusual planet in the so-called Neptunian desert. In other words, this thing is orbiting a sun-like star way too close. Now, this star is called, I don't know, but the exoplanet's called TO1849. And there's a reason why I don't cover exoplanets often on the channel. It's because I find exoplanet studies to be irrelevant, especially when we don't understand the way the sun actually works. All that aside, astronomers believe this to be the core of a gas giant. In other words, all the gas was stripped away because it's so close to the star. Its year only takes 18 hours, so imagine the tidal forces. Its surface temperature is 1,500 degrees Celsius. So now this planet's believed to be 40 times more massive than the Earth. Its radius is just 3.4 Earth radii, so it must have very high density. And yeah, an interesting exoplanet there. And perhaps flying in the face a bit of planet formation and evolution. The Bern model, which has continuously developed at the University of Bern since 2003, insights into the manifold processes involved in the formation and evolution of planets are integrated into the model. For example, submodels of accretion, growth of a planet's core, or how planets interact gravitationally, influence each other, and of processes in the protoplanetary disks in which planets are formed. The model is also used to create so-called population synthesis, which show planets develop how frequently under certain conditions in a protoplanetary disk. It's a world-renowned model. Anyway, have a read on that if you like. It's also on SciTech Daily. First, exposed planetary core discovered. Let's talk about Facebook. Now, Facebook's made in China. I think Mark Zuckerberg might be made in China. Please leave a comment if you're aware of where Mark Zuckerberg was conceived. Were his parents on a Chinese vacation when it happened? Were they in China? I think they might have been in China. Okay. Anyway, Zuckerberg saying, we're not going to change our policies as advertisers will be back soon. As Facebook continues to mislead its shareholders by getting involved in politics in all sorts of ways that it ought not to be doing, behaving as both a publisher and a platform, and trying to escape legal liability for its behavior. Now, I think the SEC should be investigating companies like this. And if you want to read more about it, check out the Zero Hedge article. A defiant Mark Zuckerberg says, we're not going to change our policies. Our policies are made in China, and our advertisers will be back as soon as possible. Okay? Congratulations on Mark, by the way, learning how to drink water in front of Congress. Well done, Mark. By the way, we are on Facebook. We've even made songs about Facebook censorship. So check us out there if you like. And check it out. Dakota Smith putting up a great animation here of sudden cloud nucleation here over Kansas. So check it out. There's the tornadic supercells formation. And we're hoping you weren't under that one. And if you haven't checked us out on Twitter, we are on Twitter. Twitter.com/smAshomash. Let's talk about HuffPo. As I've started reading HuffPo every morning, nearly first thing when I first wake up, just because of the amusement factor. HuffPo's reporting that Facebook cracked down on extremism, except Facebook equals extremism. Anyway, here's a nice article that you may want to read. My son's only 3, which means he's barely discovered the differences between boys and girls. And Allison Hope, guest writer, has already started teaching him about pride. Well, please leave a comment if you have an opinion on that. And checking out CBS, another propagandistic leftist organization. Inhaling fireworks smoke poses health risks. Who didn't know that? Why does this have to be on science publications? More than 300 Hong Kong protesters arrested. So hey, you never know. Even yellow dog journalists like CBS News occasionally report relevant things. So diversify your news sources and make sure you have some discernment, because if not, you may be reading sharticle after sharticle and believing them to be true. And well done, California, by announcing new restrictions on indoor businesses. You are making sure that you make your deficit to unmanageable levels and bankrupting your state. Let's talk about abert.org. Now, if you type in mygoogleresearch.com, you'll be directed to abert.org. And this is where I filled out the Are You a Human? Are you assertive? How adult are you? So some great surveys there if you want to have some automated analysis of your personality done. How resilient are you? It turns out I'm 85% resilient and only like 40-some% human. And I've survived a global panic and a propagandistic pandemic so far. And congratulations on doing so. Your ancestors probably survived things a lot more severe than this. Again, if you are viewing the content live, or if you're viewing it in syndication at places like YouTube and BitChute, please leave us a comment and tell us about your global pandemic experiences. How much propaganda have you believed? Have you been believing lies? Let's talk about smAshomash.com/forum. Shout out to Mary and Kimberly. Thanks for putting up information here on the Göbekli Tepe thread. So in the Earth Geophysics Forum, we've got a thread specifically about Göbekli Tepe. Thanks everybody for posting there. There's some Olmec heads. And there's the latest post from Kimberly. So again, check out smAshomash.com/forum if you haven't. It's a repository for information, and we'll be having more and more topics up on there as time goes on. Talking more and more science as we approach nearly 1,300 registered users. And it's free for everybody. You can view the content without even signing up. But in order to contribute, you'll have to create a login. And here ends today's Smashlight section. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. Let's move on to some more stuff. Let's get back to some data. The 10.7 centimeter radio flux is still at 68 solar flux units. And there's a zoom in to the last time it got over 90, which was all the way back in September 2017. Get ready, because it's coming back up, folks, as we are in cycle 25, well into cycle 25. We don't see any significant X-ray flares, and don't be confused between a solar flare and a coronal mass ejection. A solar flare is photons, and a coronal mass ejection is primarily protons. Understand the difference. Proton flux is flatlined, as we don't really see a whole lot of ejecta headed in the Earth-facing way. GOES magnetometer is going to be very spiky over the next couple of days, and you're going to see wild perturbations in this graph. Keep an eye on it over the next 36 hours, and here's why I'm saying it. It's the data from the Gong 2. Let me make sure I have the latest data here. This is 1 hour and 43 minutes old. It's a top view ecliptic plane field plot. And let me backtrack here. There we go. All right, so there's the zoom of the 10.7 centimeter radial flux. I apologize for that. I had an overlay on the screen, and we are good now. So you can see solar minimum conditions here just a few weeks after I forecasted it. GOES X-ray flux is flatlined. No solar flares, and again, understand the distinction between photons and protons. Solar flares are photons. Coronal mass ejections are mostly protons, and the proton flux is flatlined. Anyway, there's the data on the GOES magnetometer, and again, this is going to be all over the place over the next 24 hours. And there's the data from the Gong 2, and you can see some fairly extreme activity over here in this green portion of the current sheet, the outer corona. There's probably some interesting fireworks to view on stereo A. We're not going to look at it today on the daily space weather. We are solidly in the North Pole current sheet here, shown in green, and we expect to be there for an extended period of time. But expect to see that GOES magnetometer jump all over the place. And you can see the big striations and potential field force lines. We also see the B field being yanked. So you can see a big move in the B field here toward the end. You see it suddenly being pulled down toward the South Pole. Another indication of the sun moving up in activity levels. And could be a strengthening of the north solar polar field. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And when I say ion, the pun's intentional. So we did look at a coronal mass ejection yesterday, and you can see that again there. It's on the non-Earth facing side. Earth would be on the toward your screen right, because this is the view from stereo A. And there could be a coronal mass ejection about to kick off here in the Earth-facing zone. If you want to keep an eye on that, check out the Integrated Space Weather Analysis Center. It's under the Solar tab on page 7, Stereo A Core 2 Space Weather Beacon. Next, looking at the coronagraph here, the LASCO C2 on the SOHO suite. This is in between the Sun and the Earth at Lagrange point 1. We see that ejecta there headed off to the east. That's nowhere near Earth facing. That's on the opposite side of the Sun from the Earth. And here's the LASCO C3, one of our favorite comet viewing sources. And we should see Mercury going across here momentarily. And there you can see that ejecta on the eastern limb of the Sun as well. Again, that's completely nowhere near facing Earth. Here's where stuff is in the solar system, and I don't know if the solar system's going to end today or what the deal is, but for some reason we can't advance it anymore. Hey, theplanetstoday.com. What's going on with that? By the way, we're going to have a full moon over 4th of July weekend. The full moon is on the 5th, which is, Sunday, right? So it should be a weekend of bad sleep and probably all kinds of bad behavior, people shooting fireworks at each other and doing all kinds of stupid things. Please be safe out there. Next, looking at in-the-sky.org star chart. It's 5:31. Do you know where It's 5 o'clock. Do you know where your constellations are? If you get up before dawn, you should get a great view of Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn before the sun rises. Venus, the third most bright object in the sky. Next, looking at the electron flux here over the past year, you can see this ramping down, down, down. And it's at incredibly low levels once again. Not expecting to see this come back up yet today, as we don't see weak enough conditions or enough general activity. I won't get into the inverse proportionality of the way the electron flux works today, because this is not a cosmology video. It's the daily space weather. So it's fairly cratered here as we continue to see very low levels of electron flux, weak Van Allen belts, etc. We see anomalies here over the Central Pacific as well as over the Caribbean. Let me rock that. And there you can see some high electron flux around midnight there over Central America and the Caribbean. Otherwise, pretty low levels. And not particularly anomalous. Oh, actually, we do see some electron flux events there in the southern hemisphere, right there. And that's a significant one there. So right on the coast of Antarctica there, some significant electron flux anomalies. And by the way, this is the total air column: thermosphere, ionosphere, plasmasphere. Next, looking at just the ionosphere, here's 6 hours of data on that. Looking fairly normal there as far as the ionosphere layer, a little bit discharged on the sun side. Underneath my pointer right around there is about where the sun would be. And let's move on to look at earthquakes. We haven't seen anything over a 6 magnitude over the past 24 hours. Scroll up the list. We'll note anything that's particularly weird. This is a kind of a strange one here, located between the Antarctican and Australian plate near the western Indian Antarctic Ridge. Here's a deep one at Vanuatu that came in at 2017 Universal Time, almost due north of New Zealand. A deep quake strikes Afghanistan, as well as Chile, and those are only about an hour apart. So there's that one in Chile. It's 114 kilometers and a 4.0 magnitude, followed an hour later by this 4.2 in the Hindu Kush region of Afghanistan at 218 kilometers depth. Basically an earthquake lull here going on, folks. And we'll just scroll up the list so you can see what's happened. Moving on to volcanoes, to see Suwanosejima back to erupting, flight level 6,000 there. Sangay exploding, flight level 20,000 there. Ravenador exploding, flight level 15,000 there. Sabancaya exploding, flight level 20,000 there. And while we see no emissions from Nevados de Chilean, please do not attempt to do a back handspring over the caldera, as it could be erupting. It could erupt by the time you're doing the back handspring. Next, looking at the pressure maps here on windy.com. Now we're showing low pressure in this bluish color and high pressure in this orangish color. They changed the colors around for some reason. We'll advance this via the GFS forecast to see where we expect pressure cells to be tomorrow around noontime my time. There's where things will be around noon according to the GFS forecast. Some dry weather over the entire continent of Australia. Let's talk about some climate alarmism. Here's a phys.org article. And by the way, phys.org's Earth section is rife with sharticles. Here's one. UK, quote, increasingly likely, end quote, to see plus 40 degrees C temperatures, which is about 104 degrees Fahrenheit for all you non-metric types. Every 3 or 4 years by 2100. And this has probably got to do with some terribly ridiculous computer modeling associated with carbon dioxide being the climate control knob, which it isn't at all. Last year, the highest ever UK temperature, 38.7, was recorded in the eastern city of Cambridge. Oh my God. Oh my God. Anyway, their paper shows the likelihood of hitting 40 C is rapidly increasing. I'm scared, are you? And we're not going to get into global temperatures and do all that. We're just going to go to lightningmaps.org and show you some more real-time data. Here's where lightning strikes are happening. There's a big cell on the Texas-Mexican border. Check it out. If you're anywhere around there, go outside and look toward it. For instance, if you're in San Antonio, go outside and look to your west. You may see an incredible light show. There could be sprites. Anyway, lightningmaps.org, next time you hear thunder. Check it out, it's good times. Next, looking at water vapor maps for Europe and Africa. Water vapor maps for the Far East and Oceania. Water vapor maps for the Americas. Water vapor maps for the U.S. We've got a nice wall, a vertical, north to south wall of dry air here. Taking its time. And fairly clear conditions over the entire lower 48. And here is the Doppler radar for the lower 48. I thought I already played animation. Anyway, there's this scenario going on as far as Doppler radar. I'll leave that there so you can see the date stamps. Some thunderstorms off the coast of North Carolina, probably making for some wonderful surfing at the Outer Banks. And hey, Smash team, thanks for tuning into the Smash stream. Whether you viewed it live or you viewed it Memorex, leave us a comment. Tell us what you're up to for the 4th of July weekend. We're not exactly sure, although it will be pretty chill, most likely. Not really planning on doing too much. And thanks for flying, American Smash Waves. Please keep your head and arms inside the Smash plane at all times, as we've got 3, a bonus, of features. Let's see if that sunspot's degraded, as it was degrading when we started the video. And there's where it used to be. Does not look like a sunspot anymore. Here are the fields. We do see some activity rising here, both behind that former sunspot, which I don't think ever got named, and up here in the northeast. So some activity kicking off there. Let's take a look at it in 94 angstroms. Green means go. And just give that a moment to load, folks. Again, what are you up to this weekend? Congratulations on surviving Fisher-Price, my first pandemic. Now, of course, there might be some people out there who it's their second pandemic because they're over 102 years old, but chances are they don't remember their first pandemic, the, quote, Spanish flu of 1918 to 1919. Anyway, there's the local yellow dwarf in 94 angstroms. One of the reasons why we use 94 angstroms is because this takes 10 images per minute instead of only 2. A characteristic only in the 94 and 131 angstroms view. There's that calibration move, or is it the Borg playing with the SDO, determining that there's no relevant technology to assimilate. Anyway, we're out. Talk to you soon. We expect to make more videos of more varying content soon. Whether or not they'll be free and visible to the public is another story. So in any case, welcome to Neo Renaissance. Remember, stare at the sun, attempt to understand the physics. Use the proper instruments like the SDO. View our playlists. Share our content on your social media. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back.